Hey everybody, welcome back to the Law of One Spiritual Advice Podcast. My name is Elle, and I come to you today to read you some Law of One quotes, and which I will then comment on them. So today I have found a quote. Maybe I think I'll just share with you how I do this sometimes. Sometimes there's a certain catalyst in my life in which I find a quote that matches that catalyst, and then I read it and I share my thoughts on it. Other times I just go through the material randomly, either by going through maybe quotes that I've posted before, or even just searching you can search a random question answer on the law-of-one.info and it'll generate a good one, like just a random one for you. So yeah, sometimes I just go with the randomness, which is always fun because it seems to be a bit more magic in the randomness and the spontaneity. And I found this one today, and it, funny enough, was actually talking about something that I had been trying to explain to a friend recently, about basically sort of detaching yourself from your emotions and your thoughts, just for the ability to be the observer and see yourself from a perspective that doesn't negate your emotions, but will at least put you in a position to be able to make sense of it and work with it. So before I get into too much of that, let's read the quote. So this is from Quo, and I will begin. Quote, "You have come into an illusion upon this planet, and your life must be lived within that illusion in order for you to choose, by faith alone, to seek the Creator. And it is in faith that you forgive yourself, accept yourself, and fall in love with yourself. When you see those faults occurring, do not think judgmental thoughts, but think affectionately, 'there is my personality again,' and give yourself a hug. We do not suggest that you cease attempting to become a better person. We encourage that journey towards the light. However, upon that journey, you walk with feet that move through transformation. One of the transformations is to begin to see yourself as a magical, beautiful, and entirely worthy being." Quo, The Law of One, end of quote. And that is dated 2008, May 13th. You can get that at llresearch.org/transcripts. So let's start by explaining the beginning of that part where they say that you have come here to be confused. Well, what do they mean by that? So they say this in the material a lot of different places, but basically the third density is here to confuse us. We come here to be confused so that we can basically lay down the intellect at a certain point and come to the conclusion that we do not know, because we need to humble ourselves and come to that conclusion. And the illusion is happy to beat the crap out of us to get us to that point. So what happens? Why would you want to do that? Well, because at that point is the only point that you really lay down the mind and the intellect and all the rationalizing and analyzing that you've done, and you open the heart and you say, depending on what your situation is, but like thy will be done, or you just sort of, it's basically a way to crack open the heart. Now Ross states in another quote, and they put it in another way, is that in order to graduate from this density, it is absolutely imperative that one must understand that they do not understand. So that, in my opinion, is just saying the same thing another way. And it's even paradoxical in a way, right? You know that you do not know. And that may be one of the wisest things that you can do sometimes, because as knowledge has it, what is it called? The Dunning-Kruger effect or something like that. It's like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. So if you think that you're an expert on something, you should probably second guess that, because the true experts realize that the more you go into something, the more nuanced it is. And therefore just making generalized statements about anything is naive. You would be better off to admit that you know that you do not know, to a certain degree. So the idea is to come to this third density illusion, baffle the intellect, open the heart. And that synchronistically goes along with a movie that I watched a couple of times recently. What's it called? Fight Club. It's actually a crazy symbolic movie, and all the characters are actually sort of within the guy's head, whether you realize that or not. But in one of the scenes, he goes something about, it's his sort of inner inner Satan, if you will, his lower self, is saying, hey, so the intellect, what does he say exactly? He goes, like, something about being clever. Oh, that's clever. How's that working out for you? Right? So you can be clever, you can be smart, you can do it all using your mind, but if you neglect to use the heart, you will only be seeing, I would say, half of the perspective. And like I said before, that's not to denigrate the mind or put it down or anything. The mind has its purpose. It's there to help us be safe and see patterns and all these sorts of things, and it's helpful. But Carla from LL Research used to say, like, don't put the cart before the horse, which would mean, like, don't put the mind before the heart. Put the heart before the mind. Let the heart be the one that moves the mind, and don't let the mind be the one that moves the heart. Now we'll go into the other part of the quote here, where they indicate that, and it is in faith that you forgive yourself, accept yourself, and fall in love with yourself. I mean, that mirrors Ra's other words as well, in which they say the path to the heart of self is to know yourself, accept yourself, and become the creator. I think these are kind of saying similar thing, in that you need to know yourself in order to accept yourself, because how can you accept something that you don't know yet, right? So you seek knowing at first, and then you seek accepting, and in accepting comes the acceptance of your total being, and forgiving of your being and other people's being, and in that point then you become the creator. So before I go into becoming the creator, let's back up a little bit. Oh no, I know. I want to add on a Ra quote at this point. So because I'm talking about the intellect, I think that this quote from Ra sort of speaks to a similar thing in a way. So I'll just read it, and you can probably put together why I'm reading it here. So Ra says in sessions 97.9, they say, to put this into perspective, we must gaze then at the stunning mystery of the one infinite creator. The archetypical mind does not resolve any paradox or bring all into unity. This is not the property of any resource which is of third density. Therefore, may we ask the student to look up from inward working and behold the glory, the might, the majesty, the mystery, and the peace of oneness. Let no consideration of bird or beast, darkness or light, shape or shadow keep any which seeks from the central consideration of unity. End of quote. So you can kind of see there's mirroring the same thing, in essence saying, look, the mind has its reason for existing, otherwise there would be no point for us having it, but it does not resolve paradox, and it does not bring all into unity. And then it also indicate, don't let in any consideration of bird or beast, darkness or light. Keep one from the central considerations of unity. Well, what is the central considerations of unity? I would think that that would be oneness, and that sounds just like an intellectual word, so it would be unity with the creator, recognition of the creator in all things, in yourself, in other people. And it's a recognition that has compassion and unconditional love for the entirety of creation. I feel that part is key. It's not like a removed oneness. It's a real realization that, like they say in a different part of the Ra material, something about, if we feel that there's a hurt in one part of the creation, it's like a hurt on our leg. As they scream for help, it's like my leg is hurting, and I just have the innate instinct to go and help them. So, no matter what light, good things, happy things, bad things, terrible things come your way, you must always keep in mind the central consideration of unity, and that is the recognition of the creator in all. Now I want to go into more about what I was stating at the beginning about becoming the observer of our own thoughts and emotions. So this sounds sort of like a separation, and anytime we're speaking about unity, you probably would be wary about things that are telling you to separate things. So why would you want to separate your emotions and your thoughts in your head? Well, Because those are somewhat portions of the mind. I mean, not so much the emotions, but they can overwhelm the mind, and then the mind sort of takes control at that point. So what would be ideal is that as you have emotions and thoughts come up in your life, just due to the daily catalyst that presents itself to you, you would consider anything that sparked an emotion as to be some sort of trigger, or sparked a thought as some sort of trigger. So what you would do is you would have this inquisitive approach to how you feel, where although you are somewhat separated from your emotions and your thoughts, it's not that you're separated from them, it's just you realize that that is a human aspect of yourself that you need to monitor. And there's like a lower self to you and a higher self to you. And so I kind of consider the mind as the lower self, and it will speak the things that it needs to speak, and those things very much have their purpose and aren't wrong. But because they're not balanced with the upper, higher self of myself, it can be easy to get caught up in those thoughts and become overwhelmed with them, in which case we get into, like ruminating, where you basically just get stuck on a thought and you play it over and over and over and over again, and it's not getting anywhere, it's not doing anything, but just making you feel worse. And so it's like a negative feedback loop. So what you can do instead is witness the triggers in your daily life. If you're able to separate yourself momentarily from it, then do it. And if not, react how you're going to react. In the raw material elsewhere, they state something about this, which is that you have desires, and the desires in third density are meant to be sought for. You're meant to seek out your desires. So it's not that you're trying to suppress your desires. You need to go out and have these desires, and you have human desires, and they're not always perfect. So we're not about pretending that we're perfect spiritual beings. We're still humans, and that's okay. Although you do have all of these desires, sometimes what you can do is play them out in your head instead of in the physical. And therefore, if you think that something is not going to be in resonance with the law of one, meaning, it may infringe on someone's free will or something along that line, then it's better to play out that desire in your head instead of playing it out in the physical. And so if you need to play it out in the physical, that's fine. But basically, guess what I'm trying to say here is that a trigger comes your way, it triggers you, you then are wanting to express that emotion and get it out, and you're essentially, you can just basically react automatically, or you can react consciously. And to my opinion, it would be good for you to act consciously, which would mean that you react the way you will spontaneously react. But if it's going to be at the expense of somebody else and not being able to keep with your, the central considerations of unity, then you may want to just do that in your head. And then what you'll be hopefully experiencing eventually is just a more balanced approach towards your daily catalyst, in which things can happen to you, and if it seems appropriate to react to them, you do. And if it doesn't, you at least have the foresight to recognize the trigger and pull back for a moment from those emotions and just experience how you're feeling, and therefore then being able to apply that to your life in a more conscious manner at a later time when you're in a better place to actually do it. And all of this can be explained in another way in sort of chakra system. And, it would sort of be like elevating from the third chakras, your main bottom ones, your low desires, your lower desires, where you are witness to your lower desires and you're aware of them. You don't ignore them, but you eventually bring them up to a higher space. And the higher chakras having to do with love and wisdom and creativity is how you become the creator. Because if you had enough balance and activation and you've reached through all the chakras up to intelligent infinity, what you're doing with that is intelligent infinity is like reaching the creator. It's reaching the infinite, and in the infinite you make a call out to the infinite, and once you've reached there, you bring back some sort of creative gift or wisdom or love or whatever it might be. So as we seek to recognize and respect our lower selves, we at the same time want to elevate that, and we do that through caring for ourselves and loving ourselves and respecting our emotions and thoughts, but putting them in the place that they should be instead of just letting them run our lives and overwhelm us. Okay, so I feel like I was a bit all over the place in this podcast. I'll be honest with you, it took me a few tries to record this and edit it, and I'm sure it's still pretty wild and all over the place. But thanks for sticking with me. Some are more harmonious than others. If any of this speaks to you, you can always find the material on my website, www.theoneinfinitecreator.com. I got links to all the material you can read or download for free. You can support me there if you get anything out of this or the Instagram post. But overall, thanks for tuning in, everybody. I hope you have a good rest of the week, and we'll be hopefully back on Wednesday to record some more thoughts on this whole stuff. So thank you so much. Love you guys. Bye.